I think high-tech stocks will dramatically outperform our normal traditional businesses, and that as every company becomes digital, I think technology is just going to be more and more important both to businesses but also to the consumer. So I may not have the expertise that some of your earlier guests on your show have, but in terms of if I were betting on the large tech over the next decade, I think it's a very good place to be in the marketplace.
Do you think more so relative to traditional parts of the economy in the next decade than it has already been in the past decade?
Yes, I do. I think tech in total will probably outperform the traditional broad section of the market by 2 to 1. The big tech players, and you talked about a number of them, let's just use Microsoft and Apple as examples, have been remarkably good about reinventing themselves and disrupting others. So if you really watch versus prior generations of large tech players, these companies, the big five, have reinvented themselves again and again and again. And I think the odds in terms of them having a bright future are very good.
John, it's Kayla. I'll acknowledge your Tobacco Road comment and note that at least your successor, Chuck Robbins, did go to UNC. So the company did course correct. Good on you. But I want to ask you about China.
Yes.
President Trump made a comment the other day about a potential decoupling between the U.S. and China. It could have just been an offhand remark, but it has been this word that's been floating around both here in Washington and all across the United States, where people are wondering what that would look like, when it would happen, and what it would mean for big companies that have businesses over there. Do you see that as being realistic? How could that potentially play out?
Kayla, I think in the long run, the U.S. and China have to have new rules of the road, have to have guidelines where both organizations win on it. Today, it's a win-lose relationship. And understand, I came out of Wang Laboratories. It was a Chinese company here in America. I learned how to do business in China 35 years ago. It was always a win-win mentality with tough negotiations. I think the position that we have to get back to both sides winning, that you have to play by the same rules in China if we're selling as American companies there, that the Chinese companies want to play here in the U.S. And I think it's about time we dealt with the issue rather than kicking it down the road. In the long run, for the two largest economies in the world, and it will be one, too, for the foreseeable future, it's in both sides' best interest to find a way to work together. But I do think we have to get over some of these hurdles about an equal playing field, about intellectual property protection, et cetera, and they have to be dealt with. My own advice to my own startups, and this kills me because I love China. I've been, like I said, there for 35 years, is I'm recommending my startups avoid China for now till we get a more fair playing field between the two countries.
John, how worried are you about Taiwan being drawn into this? It's clearly a hot button issue as it is, but it's also an important source for a lot of tech supply for the U.S. Obviously, it's not, obviously not currently included in the sort of key question marks because it's not part of China. But what if the likes of TSMC get drawn into this more centrally?
As a company, when I was at Cisco, we invented the outsourcing of high-end technology. We developed a win-win relationship within China with Jiang Zemin, the president at that time. And candidly, that was in mid-1995. It worked well for us for the next 10 to 15 years. In terms of semiconductor capability and the ability to have your own fab plants, it's extremely important that those are independent sources we go to. It's something I believe the U.S. has to focus more on, and TSMC is an example. It's very important, I think, to U.S. interests that they are independent in terms of the direction. This has been something that's been a topic ever since I understood China. Hopefully, both sides will find a way to navigate through that and not put the semiconductor industry in a no-win. But it does speak to U.S. must lead in certain key technologies. 5G, must lead in artificial intelligence, must lead in cybersecurity. So I now think that a national agenda for U.S. tech leadership, where government and business, regardless of political party, works together, is in all of our best interests, not just economically, but in job creation and in terms of standard of living for this country.